Hello and welcome to one of the Lafarge Group's grinding stations. The safety of people working on our sites is the #1 priority. For several years, we have been taking action to reduce the number of accidents by developing a culture of zero accidents. The culture of zero accidents translates for us by the fact that the safety of people is considered a more important value than the mission assigned to them. By the fact that risky situations are not ignored and that in no case risky behaviors are tolerated by managers and employees. By the fact that each hierarchical superior takes care to organize the work of his teams by controlling the safety risks and that the employees are constantly concerned not to injure themselves while carrying out the work. The cement plant is a dangerous environment. This safety welcome is intended to explain the main risks as well as the rules and recommendations in application on the site. At the end of this presentation, we will give you a knowledge check before issuing you a security pass valid for 1 year. Once in possession of this pass, we expect from you to adopt a positive behavior, to subscribe to the culture of zero accidents, to respect the rules and recommendations presented today, to think before acting, to analyze the risks of an operation before intervening. In case of dangerous behavior, we reserve the right to deny you access to the site temporarily or permanently. Before you begin, remember that a successful procedure is an accident-free procedure. To work on our site, you must wear personal protective equipment adapted to the operation you are about to carry out. In all cases, the following personal protective equipment is mandatory. A helmet with chin strap on which must appear the name of the company and the security pass, covering goggles with bib, high safety shoes, gloves suitable for the operation you have to carry out, covering and high work clothes visibility, and finally hearing protection. Warning: people wearing glasses should wear suitable over glasses or safety glasses. Covering glasses worn over corrective glasses will not be accepted in our establishment. Depending on the risk analysis, the type of operation and the place of intervention, you must complete this basic personal protective equipment with appropriate equipment. Travel is one of the leading causes of accidents in cement plants. Seemingly banal, moving around a factory involves the risk of accidents that can be avoided by applying simple rules. I don't run, I hold the banister on the stairs, going up and down, but also when moving around when possible. I move with vigilance, paying particular attention to holes, steps, obstacles, and ruts that may be in my path. I adapt my route according to the conditions, especially on icy or rainy days. I take the pedestrian paths when they exist. I do not cross markings without the agreement of the site manager. I stay away from vehicles and machinery, or I report to the driver before entering his traffic area. I do not pass behind a moving vehicle. I don't walk in the middle of the road. I wear gloves when I travel, and I don't put sharp objects in my pockets. And finally, I wear high visibility clothing. When traveling in a vehicle, I adopt an attentive driving style, and I respect the road signs in the factory. Wearing a seat belt is compulsory in all vehicles and at all times, even for short journeys. The speed is limited to 15 km/h on the site. Vehicles are parked in reverse. Personal cars are prohibited on construction sites. The use of mobile phones while driving is prohibited throughout the factory. Finally, a valid driver's license is mandatory as well as a driving license, and a case is depending on the vehicle used. During an intervention, communication between the various stakeholders is a key element of your safety. If I am site manager, I take note of the elements of the prevention plan and the risk analysis and communicate them to the workers. I define and communicate the operating mode. I plan the safety induction for workers. I post the safety documents on the site. I ensure compliance with the consignation procedure. If I am intervening, I must have received a safety induction for workers. Before intervening, your supervisor must have informed you of the risks of the site and the operating mode. I have signed the risk analysis form. I know the operating mode. I know the accesses and emergency exits of the construction site. I record the installation with my nominative and personal padlock. Before intervening, the installations concerned must be secured to prevent accidental starting or the release of energy during your intervention. This lockout operation is carried out by the Lafarge lockout manager, in particular using padlocks. Any intervention on equipment or in the immediate vicinity must be recorded. As an intervener or manager, you must remember that an intervention requires the installation of at least one padlock on a device or on a deposit box. At the end of your intervention and after agreement from the Lafarge correspondent, you must consign. All the devices and information relating to the consignment are written on the consignment note, a duplicate of which must be posted on the site. Your padlock must be personal, nominative and unique key. You must have 2 padlocks available per person. Failure to comply with the Lafarge consignment standard exposes you to a major risk of a serious and potentially fatal accident. For your safety, respect this procedure. If in doubt, contact your Lafarge correspondent. Interventions with machines running are prohibited. Otherwise, the intervention must be the subject of a procedure or operating mode written and validated by the Lafarge manager. Consignment rules also apply during trial periods. During your intervention, you must manage all aspects of your site in terms of marking, storage, and cleanliness. Your construction site must be clearly marked. Within this work area, you are the only one who can authorize access to your worksite to other outside contractors or Lafarge personnel. Marking must be adapted as your work progresses and according to the risks in order to ensure a minimum footprint and good circulation. Work sites must be tidied up at all times, access must be free and clear of all obstacles, dangers marked, gas cylinders must be attached, electrical cables and air hoses must be positioned so as not to cause a fall. Windsocks must be equipped with anti-whip cord. The site must be kept clean. Waste must be eliminated gradually. In the event of pollution by a leak or spillage of product, immediately notify the Lafarge correspondent and take immediate measures to limit the impact of the pollution. Working at height is one of the main causes of fatal accidents within the Lafarge group. In order to reduce exposure to the risk of falling from a height, the group has implemented a standard which defines the rules to be applied when working at a height. For Lafarge, any work carried out at a height greater than 1.80 meters is considered work at height and must be approached as follows. As a first step, you must define operating methods favoring work on the ground in order to eliminate the risk. If this is not possible, you must use fall protection equipment either by installing fixed protection such as catwalks or guardrails, or using temporary work platforms such as aerial work platforms, scaffolding or individual rolling platforms to prevent falls. Finally, if the installation of these materials is not possible, then the use of personal protective equipment such as harnesses is authorized. The use of a harness will be subject to a formal permit before each operation, prior training by an approved organization, and authorization. Finally, the hardware will be checked every time. The scaffolding must be fitted by persons authorized to carry out this type of operation. Once the scaffolding has been erected, it must be received by an authorized person or organization who will issue access authorization. As long as the mentioned authorized access is not put in place, access is prohibited. It is strictly forbidden to modify even temporarily a scaffolding. If necessary, the modifications must be made by authorized persons, and the modified scaffolding must again be accepted. Work on a ladder is only authorized as a last resort after validation of the means of preventing falls by the Lafarge correspondent. To use a lifting platform, you must have a cases and a driving license, the certificate of conformity of the equipment and a knowledge of the instructions for use. In all cases, the driver of the basket must wear a harness and a short lanyard without absorber permanently attached to prevent the basket from being thrown out. It is forbidden to use a false stop as a short lanyard. A supervisor familiar with emergency maneuvers will be positioned at the foot of the platform to intervene in the event of a problem. It is strictly forbidden to get out of the basket to access a site, or to climb on the railing, or to use a basket to lift loads. Work on an individual rolling platform is authorized. Any use of a harness or cradle will give rise to the drafting of a work at height permit which must be validated by your superiors and given to the Lafarge correspondent. The workers must be trained by an approved organization, and finally the equipment must be inspected and checked before use. To use fall protection equipment or personal protective equipment, you must be trained and authorized. As the consequences of a fall are always serious, deviation from the working at height standard cannot be tolerated. Handling is a common operation on our sites and must be carried out with care and professionalism. In the case of handling with equipment such as a crane or hoist, you must comply with the following rules. Before any operation, estimate the load to be lifted, check the authorized load of the lifting equipment, crane, hoists, slings, shackle, etc., respect the slinging rules, and in particular the maximum authorized angles, check that the head of maneuver knows the gestures of maneuver, mark out the handling area, and prohibit passage. In all cases, it is strictly forbidden to pass under a load. Manual handling will be avoided in favor of mechanical handling means in order to spare the workers. If the use of handling equipment is not possible, the application of gestures and postures must be systematic. Estimate the load, remove obstacles from the course, bend the knees, carry the load close to the body, avoid repetitive movements, avoid prolonged awkward postures. In all cases you must wear personal protective equipment and in particular gloves and safety shoes. The use of hand tools such as grinders, drills, grinders, and sledgehammers or welding machines is very common in cement work. For all operations, it is mandatory to wear appropriate personal protective equipment and to check the condition of the equipment before and after use. In any case, think before you act and position your body so as not to be in the path of the tool or the projections generated by the tool. This simple precaution would make it possible to avoid half of the accidents with stoppage caused by this type of tool. Interventions with drill or grinders must be carried out with waterproof goggles, gloves and clothing to protect the body against burns. In all cases, the original safety devices must be present on the machine, and in particular the handle which allows both hands to be on the tool. It is prohibited to use a disc with severe do grinding. Welding operations must be carried out with welding goggles or a welding mask, clothing protecting the body from burns such as a leather apron, and gloves suitable for work in hot spots. It is your responsibility to position screens or protective tarpaulins, if necessary, to prevent metal drips, projections or arc strikes from people working near the site. The use of cutting tools such as cutters or knives must be done with anti-cut gloves and by positioning the body out of the path of the tool. The use of striking tools such as sledgehammers, hammers, impact wrenches, chisels and other metal objects made from hard steel can generate metal shards whose trajectory is unpredictable and which pierce normal work clothes. You must therefore use adequate protection such as a leather apron, visor and leather gloves protecting the vital areas of the body. Prior inspection of the tools used and evacuation of people not directly involved in the operation will reduce the risk of accidents. The operations of disassembly must be carried out carefully to prevent accidents. Before starting a dismantling, you must carry out a risk analysis and define an operating procedure specifying the details of the operations and the materials to be used. The major risk is the lack of control of residual energies such as weight, pressure, relaxation of constraints or electricity which can surprise the worker during dismantling. As with other operations, the worksite must be kept clean and tidy, the deposited materials must be evacuated as they occur, the collective protections concerned must be put back in place or modified accordingly, and the circulation spaces must be restored. Conditioned by plugging the holes, putting back the railings, etc. Several interventions can take place in a limited space. The associated risks are identified in the risk analysis sheet, but you must be vigilant and control the risks generated by your intervention for those who are at your side, but also above and below. For it, communicate with your Lafarge correspondent and other stakeholders. Mark out your activity area, remove unnecessary markup, respect the markup in place. Report the interferences in the risk analysis sheet. Overlapping work will not be accepted. During the duration of the intervention, the proper management of your site will be verified by your Lafarge correspondent, audits and safety visits, with boots on the ground. The discrepancies observed must be corrected and may lead to work stoppages. In the event of serious or repeated breaches, we reserve the right to deny you access to the site. Compliance with safety rules is a condition of employment. The following information is provided for information only. For complete information, refer to the Labor Code. You must respect the Labor Code, in particular the legal thresholds for working hours, namely, the working day cannot exceed 10 hours, the daily rest must be at least 11 hours, the work week cannot exceed 48 hours, the weekly rest must be at least 35 hours. If you believe you are in danger, you have the right to exercise your right of withdrawal and to stop your intervention. In this case, notify your hierarchy and the Lafarge correspondent. Once the work is finished, your Lafarge correspondent checks the work done with you and confirms the end of the work. To complete the intervention, you must release the installations, deconson and tidy up the site. Before deconsoning, you must release the installation by putting the safety devices back in place, such as railings, protective casings and clearing the intervention area of any equipment in order to allow the tests to be carried out and start up. Then, with the agreement of the Lafarge correspondent, you can deconson the installations by removing all the lockout padlocks. Finally, before leaving the site area, you must return the equipment loaned by Lafarge, remove your tools and equipment, remove the waste. Report your departure from the site to the Lafarge manager. The risks associated with work in hot spots are present on our site. For all work in hot spots outside the dedicated area, a complex fire permit must be obtained. It is of course forbidden to smoke in these workshops. The specific risks are fire, explosion and work on equipment using chemicals. Many chemicals are present on the site. You must know the meaning of the signs, the associated risks and take preventive measures, particularly in terms of personal protective equipment. Intervening on a stock of material in a silo or a hopper is extremely dangerous and must be subject to specific measures. It's forbidden to walk up on a stock, to enter a silo or a hopper without a permit, to pass or work within 10 meters of a heap, to access it alone. The specific risks are collapse, burial, and the risk of falls. The conveyors are very dangerous and have injured or killed several people on our sites. In order to prevent these accidents, Lafarge has set out 10 rules to be observed when working on a conveyor or in the immediate vicinity of a conveyor. An intervention near a running conveyor will only be authorized if all the protective devices are in place, if the intervention makes it possible to keep a sufficient distance between the conveyor and the workers. That is to say that clothes, tools, hair and any part of the body are at a sufficient distance from the conveyor. The installations must be recorded before intervening. The worker shall not modify, misuse or remove the control, locking or signaling devices. It is forbidden to climb, sit, run, stand, touch, or walk on or under exposed parts of conveyors. Workers must be trained and prepared to use and maintain conveyors. You must ensure that no one is near the conveyor when it is started, and you must report any unsafe condition or behavior. Confined space work requires a permit. Attention: the start of all our installations is automatic and is done remotely. Access to and interventions in electrical substations are subject to authorization. Tipping tanks and skips can overturn during unloading. It is forbidden to drive or work near a skip or a tipping tank being unloaded. Wearing hearing protection is compulsory in marked areas due to ambient noise and the type of intervention, which generate a sound level greater than 80 decibels. Grinding, welding, cutting, hammering, working next to a machine or a compressor are all common operations in the cement works for which the noise level is higher than the authorized limit. Remember that if you raise your voice to make yourself heard, then the sound level is above 80 decibels. To drive a handling machine, you must have a driver's license, a driving authorization and a cases. The clinker, cement, but also exhaust gases, grinding and welding operations, and more generally interventions in the cement works generate dust which can have an impact on your health. The dust most dangerous to health cannot be seen, dust with a diameter of less than 10 microns. The obligation to wear a protective mask will be specified in the risk analysis sheet, but we encourage you to wear it systematically. In the event of an accident, keep calm, protect the victim by cutting off energy, electricity, gas, etc. Quickly examine the condition of the victim or the importance of the disaster in order to be able to give precise indications, alert the emergency and prevent the central room, rescue the victim. If you are trained, by carrying out emergency actions adapted to the victim or the disaster, emergency numbers 338 from a landline or 0328 25 94 38 from a mobile phone. Any accidental fact must be reported immediately to the Lafarge correspondent. In the event of a minor accident, Lafarge encourages companies to offer a modified workstation with the agreement of the occupational physician to ensure continuity of work. In the event of an accident, the victim is prohibited from leaving the site alone without the advice of the emergency services and without informing his superiors or Lafarge. Certain circumstances may lead us to evacuate the facilities. In case of evacuation, keep calm, evacuate without precipitation, assemble at the nearest point, count the presence, wait for instructions. Access is through the main gate. Personal vehicles are prohibited outside the visitor and company car parks. Lafarge provides sanitary facilities and a few changing rooms. Please respect these facilities and keep them clean. During production stoppages, the company can install one or more bungalows in the activity area. You must pass the security reception before intervening within the factory to obtain the pass security valid for 1 year and to stick on the helmet. Lafarge cement sites have ISO 14001 environmental certification. Our environmental policy is minimize dust emissions and gaseous emissions, to save natural resources, to integrate in the best possible way into its environment, prevent and organize the management of accidental situations. We expect subcontractors working on the plant to subscribe to this policy, particularly in terms of waste sorting. You are responsible for the disposal of your waste And it is forbidden to use our sorting facilities unless authorized when signing the contract. In case of non-compliance, Lafarge Simons reserves the right to interrupt your work. The origin of our very serious incidents and accidents in the group has been broken down into categories. 85% of fatal accidents are caused by 8 types of event, 5 of which concern grinding stations. Training with equipment, collisions involving mobile equipment, the burial of people by matter, falls from height, the risk of structural collapse. We will be required to carry out critical VPCs to verify that the priority adverse events are not present during your interventions. Thank you for your attention. You are now going to perform a knowledge test using a Google form. The correction to the incorrect answer will be communicated to you at the end of the quiz. Good luck.